The transport ship dropped through the orange clouds of Vraxia Prime. Inside, Park Ji-won checked his backpack one more time. Water bottle, energy bars, medical kit, tablet, extra jacket, and his collection of small rocks from different planets. Everything was there. Just like always. Ji-won was a human diplomat. His job was to make friends with new alien species. Today, he would meet the Vraxians for the first time. Nobody knew much about them, except that they were very dangerous. They were tall, covered in black scales, and had won many wars before joining the Galactic Council. The ship landed near a settlement built into volcanic rocks. When the door opened, hot air rushed inside. Ji-won grabbed his backpack and walked down the ramp. His boots crunched on the dark sand. Waiting for him were the Vraxians. They were even bigger than the reports said. Each one stood almost 3 meters tall. Their scales were black and shiny, with glowing blue lines running down their backs. Their eyes were golden and had many small parts, like insect eyes. When they looked at Ji-won, he felt like a mouse being watched by cats. The biggest Vraxian stepped forward. His name was Krathvor, and he was the leader. His voice came out as clicks and hisses, but Ji-won's translator turned it into words he could understand. "Welcome, human. You are very small." Ji-won smiled. He had heard worse greetings. "Thank you for having me," honored Krathvor. "Humans may be small, but we are friendly." Krathvor made a sound that might have been a laugh. His mandibles, the sharp mouthparts around his jaw, clicked together. "We will see if small and friendly is enough." The Vraxians showed Ji-won to his living space. It was a room carved from volcanic rock, with a bed and a desk. As he unpacked his backpack, Ji-won noticed something. Several young Vraxians were watching him from the doorway. These were cubs, the children of the settlement. They were smaller than the adults, only about as tall as Ji-won himself. Their scales were lighter in color, more gray than black. The glowing lines on their backs pulsed quickly, which Ji-won's research said meant they were excited or curious. One of the cubs tilted its head to the side, its golden eyes fixed on Ji-won's backpack. Over the next few days, Ji-won worked to learn about Vraxian culture. He attended their council meetings. He watched their warriors train. He tried their food, which was mostly raw meat. The adult Vraxians were polite but distant. They clearly didn't think much of the small human, but the cubs were different. Everywhere Ji-won went, 3 young Vraxians followed him. Their names were Shtek, Vernai, and Klisizra. They were the children of important families in the settlement. The cubs didn't talk to Ji-won at first. They just watched. They watched him put on his backpack in the morning. They watched him take things out of it during the day. They watched him organize it at night. Their heads would tilt one way, then the other, trying to understand. Ji-won found it amusing. He had met many alien species in his career. Some were scared of humans. Some were curious. Some didn't care at all. Ji-won found it amusing. But he had never seen aliens so fascinated by something as simple as a backpack. On the 7th day, something changed. Ji-won was walking through the settlement when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and looked down. The smallest cub, Shtek, stood there. The young Vraxian's mandibles were clicking softly. "Human?" the cub said through the translator. "Why do you carry a shell that comes off?" Ji-won blinked. A shell that comes off. That was what they thought his backpack was. He smiled and knelt down so he was at eye level with the cub. "This is called a backpack," Ji-won explained. "It's not a shell. It's a tool. Humans use it to carry things we might need." The other 2 cubs, Vernai and Klisizra, crept closer. Their glowing lines pulsed faster. "But why?" Vernai asked. "Vraxians carry nothing. We are strong. We need nothing." Ji-won thought about how to explain this. He slowly took off his backpack and set it on the ground. Then he opened it wide, so the cubs could see inside. "Let me show you," he said. He pulled out his water bottle first. "This is water. If I get thirsty and there's no water nearby, I have some with me." The cubs leaned closer, their eyes wide. Next came the energy bars. "This is food. If I get hungry, I don't have to hunt. I can eat these." Then the medical kit. "If I get hurt, I have bandages and medicine." The tablet. "This helps me learn about new places and new friends." The jacket. "If it gets cold, I can put this on." Finally, he showed them his rock collection. Small stones from a dozen different planets. "And these are memories. Each rock reminds me of a place I've been." By the time he finished, all 3 cubs were sitting on the ground around the backpack. Their mandibles hung open slightly. Their glowing lines were pulsing so fast they almost looked like solid light. "Human carries everything?" "Not everything," Jiwon said with a laugh. "Just things that might be useful. You see, humans learned a long time ago that being ready for problems is just as important as being strong. We can't grow claws like you. We don't have scales to protect us, so we carry what we need to survive." Shtek reached out one claw and very gently touched the backpack. "This is smart," the cub said. "We call it being prepared," Jiwon said. That evening, Jiwon was eating dinner in the common area when Krathvor approached his table. The big leader sat down across from him. The chair groaned under his weight. "My offspring will not stop talking about your carrying shell," Krathvor said. His mandibles clicked in a way that might have been annoyance. "Shtek asked me why Vraxians do not carry things. I told him, we are predators. We need nothing but ourselves. He said humans are smart to be ready. Now he asks why we cannot be smart and strong." Jiwon took a sip of his water. He chose his words carefully. "Your son is very intelligent. Being prepared doesn't make someone weak. It just makes them ready for more situations." Krathvor was quiet for a long moment. His golden eyes studied Jiwon. "You are a strange creature, human. Soft and small. But my young ones see something in you we do not. Perhaps that is why the council sent you here." "Perhaps," Jiwon agreed. That night, Jiwon lay in his bed and thought about the day. He had shown his backpack to alien cubs. Such a simple thing. But their reaction had been so strong, they saw the backpack as something new and amazing. He wondered if this was how real communication started between species. Not through big speeches or formal agreements, but through small moments. Through showing each other the simple things that made sense to them. Outside his window, he could hear the sounds of the Vraxian settlement. Adult warriors practicing combat, the crackling of fires, and somewhere in the distance, the high-pitched clicking of young cubs talking excitedly to each other. Jiwon smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would be interesting. He could feel it. The cubs had seen something that sparked their curiosity, and curious children, no matter what planet they came from, always wanted to learn more. He closed his eyes and let the strange sounds of the alien world lull him to sleep. His backpack sat beside his bed, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Just like always. The next morning, Jiwon woke up to find 12 young Vraxians sitting outside his door. They were all staring at his window, waiting. When he opened the door, they all jumped to attention. Their glowing backlines pulsed with excitement. "Good morning," Jiwon said, confused. "We want to see the carrying shell again," one of the cubs said. Shtek told everyone about it. "We want to learn about being prepared." Jiwon laughed. He had not expected this. "Okay. Let me get dressed first. Then we can talk." Word had spread through the young Vraxians like fire through dry grass. Every cub in the settlement now knew about the human and his magical backpack. They followed Jiwon everywhere. When he went to meetings, they waited outside. When he ate meals, They watched from other tables. When he took walks around the settlement, a small parade of cubs trailed behind him. The adult Vraxians found this very amusing. They had never seen their young ones so interested in an alien before. Usually, Vraxian cubs learned by watching their parents hunt and fight. But now they were fascinated by a small human who carried supplies on his back. "Your offspring seem to like me," Jiwan told Krathvor during a meeting. The leader clicked his mandibles. "They are young and curious. They will grow out of it. When they begin real warrior training, they will forget about carrying shells and remember what it means to be Vraxian." But Jiwan wasn't so sure. The cubs didn't seem like they would forget easily. They asked him questions constantly. "What else could you carry? How did you decide what to pack? Did all humans have backpacks? Could you carry too much? How heavy was too heavy?" On the 10th day, something exciting happened. A transport ship arrived with supplies from the human embassy. Another human stepped out. His name was Kim Dae-hyun, and he was a xenobiologist. His job was to study alien life forms and understand how they lived. Dae-hyun also wore a backpack. His was bigger than Jiwan's. It was military style, colored in dark green, with many pockets and straps. It looked very professional and well organized. The cubs went absolutely wild. They surrounded Dae-hyun before he even made it 10 steps from his ship. Their clicking and hissing became so loud that several adult Vraxians came to see what the noise was about. "There are more shell carriers," Vernai shouted. "The humans all have them." Dae-hyun looked at Jiwan with confusion. "What's going on? Why are they so excited about my pack?" Jiwan grinned. "Long story. Just show them what's inside. Trust me." Dae-hyun knelt down and opened his backpack. Inside were scientific instruments, sample containers, a portable lab kit, food rations, camping gear, and about 20 other items the cubs had never seen before. They crowded around him, their golden eyes reflecting every tool and gadget. "This is wonderful," Dae-hyun said later, after they had escaped to Jiwan's quarters. "Do you realize what's happening here? These young Vraxians are learning about tool use and planning ahead. Their species is based entirely on physical strength and hunting instincts. But the cubs are seeing a different way to be strong, through preparation and tools." Jiwan nodded. "I noticed. But I'm not sure how the adults feel about it." "Who cares?" Dae-hyun said excitedly. "This is how real cultural exchange happens. Not through formal treaties, but through ideas spreading naturally, especially through children. They're the ones who will carry these ideas into the future." That evening, Dae-hyun approached Jiwan with a plan. "We should do a demonstration. Show the cubs how humans use preparation to survive in different situations. Make it educational, but fun. What do you think?" Jiwan thought about it. The idea was good, but they would need permission from Krathvor. The leader might not like humans teaching his young ones. The next morning, Jiwan requested a formal meeting with Krathvor. He explained Dae-hyun's idea. The big Vraxian leader was silent for a long time. His mandibles clicked slowly as he thought. "You want to teach our cubs your soft-skin ways," Krathvor finally said. "Not to replace your ways," Jiwan said carefully. "Just to add to them. Knowledge is never a bad thing, and your cubs are already curious. We might as well teach them correctly." Krathvor's glowing lines pulsed. "Our young learn through watching hunts, through combat training, through understanding what it means to be a predator. Your ways are different." "Different doesn't mean wrong," Jiwan said. "Your species joined the Galactic Council. That means accepting that other species do things differently, and sometimes different approaches can help." Another long silence. Then Krathvor stood up. "Very well. You may give your demonstration, but only for one afternoon. If I think you are making our cubs weak, it stops immediately." "Agreed," Jiwan said. 2 days later, under the main dome of the settlement, Jiwan and Dae-hyun set up their demonstration. They created different scenarios using props and equipment. Every young Vraxian in the settlement came to watch. So did many adults, though they pretended to be doing other things nearby. The first scenario was a sudden storm. Jiwan showed how his waterproof jacket protected him from rain, how his emergency shelter could be set up quickly, how sealed containers kept food dry. The cubs watched with complete attention. Their glowing lines barely pulsed. They were focused. The second scenario was an equipment failure during a journey. Daehyun demonstrated his multi-tool, showing how one item could be a knife, a screwdriver, pliers, and more. He showed how duct tape could fix almost anything temporarily, how a compass could help if electronic navigation failed. The third scenario was a medical emergency. Using a dummy, Jiwan showed his first aid kit. Bandages for wounds, medicine for pain, antiseptic to prevent infection, a thermal blanket for shock. The fourth scenario was running out of food during a long trip. Both humans showed their emergency rations. High-energy bars that could keep someone alive for days. Water purification tablets that made dirty water safe to drink. For each scenario, they explained the same idea. Be ready before the problem happens. Don't wait until you need something to wish you had it. When the demonstration ended, the cubs sat in complete silence. Then, slowly, they all began clicking and hissing at once. The sound was deafening. The adults looked surprised at the strong reaction. One small cub, a young female named Clisses Ra, stood up. She held something in her claws. It was a small pouch made from woven plant fibers. Rough and simple, but definitely made by hand. Inside the pouch were 3 stones and a piece of dried meat. The cub walked up to Jiwan. Her voice was quiet but clear through the translator. Clisses Ra made carrying shell. Put useful things inside. Like human teaches. Jiwan felt emotion fill his chest. This small alien child had listened, had learned, had made her own version of a backpack. He knelt down, so he was at her eye level. Yes, he said softly. Yes, you made a carrying shell, and you put good things inside. You are prepared. Clisses Ra's glowing lines pulsed with happiness. She turned to the other cubs and held up her pouch. See? We can carry things too. We can be prepared like humans. That night, Jiwan and Daehyun sat outside under the orange sky of Vraxia Prime. In the distance, they could see young Vraxians working with plant fibers and scraps of material. They were all trying to make their own pouches and bags. We may have just changed this entire species' future, Daehyun said quietly. Maybe, Jiwan replied. Or maybe we just gave them a new tool. Either way. Krathvor watched from his dwelling. He saw his son Shtek carefully weaving fibers together, making a bag. Part of him wanted to stop this, to tell his offspring to stop acting like soft humans, to remember he was a Vraxian warrior, but another part of him was curious. His son looked happy. The leader turned away from the window. He would watch and wait. Time would tell if the human's influence was good or bad for his people. 1 week passed. Then 2. The carrying bag trend among the young Vraxians grew stronger every day. What started with Clisses Ra's simple plant fiber pouch became something much bigger. Every cub in the settlement was making bags now. They used different materials. Some wove plant fibers like Clisses Ra had. Others used animal hides from their hunts. Some found scraps of old technology and repurposed them into straps and containers. A few creative cubs even used shed scales from adult Vraxians, which were tough and flexible. The designs got better with practice. The first bags were rough and simple, but the cubs learned quickly. They shared ideas with each other. They copied good designs and improved bad ones. Within 2 weeks, some of the bags looked almost professional. More importantly, the cubs were filling their bags with things they thought were useful. G1 loved seeing what each cub chose to carry. Most cubs carried rocks. This made sense. Vraxians had natural instincts for geology. They could identify different rock types by sight and smell. Many cubs collected three types: igneous rocks from volcanoes, sedimentary rocks from dried lakes, and metamorphic rocks that formed under pressure. These were like textbook samples. All cubs carried food. Dried meat strips were most popular. Some carried dried fruits or edible fungi. A few carried live insects, which the Vraxians considered a good snack. One adventurous cub even carried small packets of human energy bars that Daehyun had shared. Many cubs carried small tools, pieces of sharp volcanic glass that could cut, smooth stones good for grinding, flexible sticks useful for reaching into narrow spaces. One clever cub named Tessik carried a piece of polished metal that worked as a mirror. Some cubs carried sentimental items, pretty flowers that only bloomed once per decade, shed scales from their parents, drawings made with colored mud, small bones with interesting shapes, shiny pieces of metal or crystal. Shtek, Krathvor's son, had the most impressive bag. He had made it from thermal-resistant fungus hide, the kind that grew deep in volcanic caves. The bag had multiple pockets, each sewn carefully with fiber cord. His collection was carefully organized. In one pocket, 3 different rock types, each chosen perfectly to represent the planet's geology. In another pocket, strips of high-quality dried meat, seasoned with local herbs. In a third pocket, a small blade made from volcanic glass, wrapped in soft leather to prevent accidents. In a fourth pocket, a dried flower that only bloomed once every 10 years. It was bright blue, now faded, but still beautiful. Jiwon found Shtek organizing his bag one afternoon. "That's a very good collection," Jiwon said. The young Vraxian looked up. His glowing lines pulsed with pride. Human Jiwon carries memories of many worlds, rocks from different planets. Shtek cannot visit other planets yet, so Shtek carries memories of home. When Shtek travels to stars someday, we'll remember Vraxia Prime. Jiwon felt his throat tighten with emotion. "That's very wise, Shtek. You're a smart young Vraxian, learned from human," Shtek said simply. But not everyone was happy about the changes. The adult Vraxians watched the cubs' new behavior with mixed feelings. Some thought it was harmless play. Others worried it was making their offspring soft. Krathvor called a meeting of the settlement's elders. 8 of the oldest and most respected Vraxians gathered in the council chamber. Jiwon was not invited, but he heard about the meeting later from Lee Haejin, the human cultural liaison who had arrived the week before. Haejin had been invited to speak. The elders wanted to hear a human perspective on what was happening to their young. "This carrying shell trend concerns us," one elder named Dr. Siskoth said. "Vraxian cubs should learn hunting, fighting, survival through strength, not carrying things like soft creatures." Another elder, Vresis Moth, clicked her mandibles. "But they are still learning to hunt, still training in combat. The bags do not stop this. They only add something new, adding softness," Durskoth countered, "making them think they need things outside themselves. A true Vraxian needs nothing but their body and skills." Haejin listened carefully to both sides. Then she spoke. "With respect, honored elders, your young are not becoming soft. They are becoming prepared. Those are different things." Krathvor leaned forward. "Explain." "Look at what the cubs carry," Haejin said. "Food for long journeys, tools for unexpected situations, medicine for injuries. These are not signs of weakness. These are signs of intelligence, of planning ahead, of thinking about future problems, and preparing solutions." "We never needed such things," Dark Driskoth said stubbornly. "Your people never left your planet before," Haejin replied gently. "Now you are part of the Galactic Council. Your young will travel to many worlds, meet many species, face many situations you never imagined. The cubs who learn to prepare and adapt will be stronger than those who rely only on claws." Vresis Moth made a thoughtful sound. "The human speaks with wisdom. Our cubs still hunt. still fight, still prove physical strength, but now they also prove foresight, the ability to think ahead. The Bresnan, in Quarter 2. Is this not also a predator skill? The elders argued for another hour. Some were convinced by Hajin's words. Others remained doubtful. Krathvor listened to everything, but said little. He wanted to observe more, before deciding. 3 days later, something happened that changed Krathvor's mind completely. A group of cubs went on a supervised hunting trip. This was normal training. Adult warriors took the young ones into the volcanic hills to track and hunt local prey animals. The adults watched but did not help unless there was danger. Shtek, Vrunai, and 8 other cubs were in this hunting group. 2 adult warriors, Chris's Tar and Velnak, supervised. The hunt was going well. The cubs had tracked a herd of 6-legged grazers to a rocky area. Then disaster struck. A young cub named Kesslin stepped on unstable ground. The volcanic rock crumbled under his weight. Before anyone could react, Kesslin fell into a narrow crevasse. The drop was about 10 meters deep. Kesslin was not badly hurt, but he was trapped. The crevasse was too narrow for adult Vraxians to fit into. The walls were too smooth for the cub to climb up alone. The adult warriors discussed how to rescue him. "We need to return to the settlement for rope," Chris's Tar said. "That will take 2 hours," Velnak replied. "We should try to widen the opening." While the adults debated, Vernai stepped forward. The young female opened her bag and pulled out a length of braided cord. She had made it herself from her own shed scales, woven tightly together. It was thin but incredibly strong. "Vernai has rope," she said simply. The adult warriors stared at her in surprise. Then, Vernai walked to the edge of the crevasse and tossed one end of the cord down to Kesslin. The trapped cub grabbed it. Vernai braced herself and helped pull. Shtek and 2 other cubs grabbed the cord too, adding their strength. Together, the cubs pulled Kesslin to safety. The whole rescue took less than 5 minutes. Chris's Tar looked at the braided cord in amazement. "Why did you make this?" Vernai's glowing lines pulsed calmly. "Humans teach that being prepared means thinking about what might happen. Someone might need help, might need to climb, might need to tie something. So, Vernai made rope. Just in case." When the hunting group returned to the settlement, Chris's Tar went straight to Krathvor. He told the leader everything that had happened. How Vernai's prepared cord had saved Kesslin. How the cubs had solved the problem while adults were still planning. That evening, Krathvor visited Jiwan's quarters. For a long moment, he just stood there, watching Jiwan organize his backpack for the next day's work. "You have changed my offspring," Krathvor finally said. His voice was not angry, just thoughtful. "Changed how they see the world. Changed how they think about challenges. Is this human strategy? Make young ones into humans?" Jiwan looked up at the towering alien. He spoke carefully but honestly. "No, honored leader. Your young are not becoming humans. They are becoming better Vraxians. More adaptable Vraxians. The galaxy is huge and full of challenges that cannot be solved with claws alone. You knew this when your people joined the Galactic Council." Krathvor's glowing lines pulsed slowly. This meant deep thought. "My daughter saved a life today. Not with strength, not with hunting skill, but with preparation, with thinking ahead." He paused. "She said she learned this from you. I showed her one way to think about problems," Jiwan said. "But she made the choice to prepare. She made the rope. She brought it along even though she didn't know if she would need it. That intelligence is all hers." The big Vraxian made a deep rumbling sound. Jiwan had learned this was how they showed respect. "Wisdom can come in soft shells," Krathvor said. "I understand this now. Wisdom. I understand this now." 6 weeks after first contact, disaster struck Vraxia Prime. The settlement's warning system started screaming at dawn. Everyone rushed to the command center to see what was wrong. A massive solar flare was hitting the planet. This type of event happened on many worlds, but this one was unusually strong. The electromagnetic pulse was frying electronic systems across the entire settlement. Lights flickered and died. Computer screens went black. Communication arrays sparked and shut down. The main power generator made a horrible grinding sound and stopped working. Within minutes, only emergency battery lights remained. Those would last maybe 3 days at most. The adult Vraxians immediately shifted into survival mode. This was what they were made for. Crisis situations where quick action and physical strength mattered. Krothvor organized teams with military efficiency. First team: organize food rationing. Second team: prepare hunting parties. Third team: scout the deep caves in case we need to evacuate. Fourth team: check what systems still work. The Vraxians moved with purpose. No panic, just efficient action. Jiwan watched with respect. Whatever else the Vraxians were, they were excellent at handling immediate threats. But Choi Minho, the human engineer who had arrived 2 weeks ago, saw a different problem. He was checking the settlement's systems with a portable scanner. His face grew more concerned with each reading. "We have a bigger problem than power," Minho said to Jiwon, Daehyun, and Haejin. The 4 humans gathered in a corner of the command center. "The water purification system is offline. Without power, it can't filter out the volcanic minerals from the local water supply." "How bad is that?" Haejin asked. "For adult Vraxians? They can probably drink unfiltered water for a week. Maybe longer. Their bodies can handle high mineral content. But the cubs..." Minho shook his head. "Their filtration organs are still developing. The mineral content will make them sick within 2 days. Very sick." Jiwan felt his stomach drop. "Does Krothvor know?" "I just told him," Minho said. "His solution is to send the cubs to the deep caves with stored water while we work on repairs. But there isn't enough stored water for all the cubs to last a week. And the nearest human ship with supplies is 4 days away at best." The 4 humans looked at each other. They needed a solution, and they needed it fast. Daehyun pulled out his tablet, which still had some battery life. "Let me check what we have in terms of supplies. Maybe we can stretch what we have." Quote, they made a list. The settlement had stored water for maybe 3 days, if rationed carefully. The humans had some water purification tablets, but not nearly enough for dozens of cubs for a week. The backup generators needed parts that had been destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse. "We need more water sources," Jiwan said. "Or a way to filter the water without power. Or both." They were still trying to solve the problem when a group of young Vraxians approached them. Shtek led the group, with Vernai and Klesis Ra right behind him. About 15 cubs in total. All of them wore their bags. "Humans are worried," Shtek observed. "Cubs can help." Jiwan managed a smile despite the stress. "Thank you, Shtek. But this is a difficult problem. We need clean water, and we don't have enough." "Cubs have water," Vernai said. She opened her bag and pulled out 3 sealed containers. "And tablets that make dirty water clean. Traded from human supplies last week." Jiwan stared. The cubs had water purification tablets? He had given a few to interested cubs as examples, but he didn't realize they had been collecting them. "Show me everything you have," Minho said urgently. The cubs opened their bags. The collection was impressive. Between all 15 cubs, they had about 30 purification tablets. Not enough for the whole crisis, but enough to make a difference. They also had various containers for carrying water. Emergency food supplies. Basic medical items. Small tools. Each cub had become a miniature mobile supply cache. Just like Jiwan had taught them. But Shtek had more to show. He pulled out a piece of dried animal hide from his bag. On it was a crude map drawn with colored mud. It showed the settlement and the surrounding area. Several locations were marked with symbols. "What is this?" Jiwan asked. "Shtek explores during playtime," the young Vraxian explained. "Makes maps of interesting places. Here, he pointed to one mark, is underground spring. Water comes from different rock layer than settlement water. Tastes different. Might be cleaner. Minho grabbed the map and studied it carefully. Where exactly is this spring? Shtek's glowing lines pulsed with excitement. Shtek can show, but entrance is narrow. Only cubs can fit through. The humans and Shtek quickly found Krathvor. The leader was organizing cave supplies with other adults. When they explained about the underground spring, his mandibles clicked with interest. I know these springs, Krathvor said, studying the map. We thought they were too small to be useful. You are saying they might have clean water? Different geological source, Minho explained. If they're fed by deeper rock layers, the mineral content might be low enough to be safe. We need to test it. But it could solve our water problem. The entrance is too narrow for adults, Krathvor said, seeing the problem immediately. Cubs can go, Shtek said proudly. Cubs are small, can reach spring, can test water, can fill containers. Krathvor looked at his son. For a moment, his expression was hard to read. Then, his glowing lines pulsed with what might have been pride. Very well. You have prepared for this with your carrying shells. Now you will prove if your preparation has value. Within an hour, a plan was in place. The cubs would access the narrow spring entrance with empty containers and testing equipment. Minho would test the water. If it was clean enough, they would establish a water collection system. Cubs would fill containers at the spring. Adult Vraxians would carry the full containers in bulk back to the settlement. For the bulk carrying, Minho quickly designed simple harnesses that adult Vraxians could wear. They were basically giant backpacks, sized for warriors. Some adults grumbled about wearing soft skin gear. But they did it anyway. The situation was too serious for pride. The cubs were amazing. They went through the narrow passage that adult Vraxians could not fit through. They found the underground spring exactly where Shtek had marked it. Minho's tests showed the water was clean enough to drink safely, even for cubs. The deeper geological layer filtered out most of the dangerous minerals naturally. They established a chain system. Cubs filled containers at the spring. They passed the containers through the narrow tunnel to a wider chamber. Adult Vraxians wearing the new harnesses carried multiple containers from the wider chamber back to the settlement. It was hard work. The passage was dark and difficult. But the cubs worked without complaint. They had prepared for hard situations. Now, they were living through one. The cubs' stored supplies helped too. The food they had been carrying meant they could work longer without breaks. The tools they carried solved small problems as they appeared. The medical supplies treated minor scrapes and cuts. Over 6 long days, they maintained the water supply. Cubs and adults working together. Human technology and Vraxian strength combined. The cubs' preparation and the adults' power. When the settlement's power finally restored on the 7th day, every Vraxian was exhausted. But they had survived. No one had gotten seriously sick. No cubs had suffered from bad water. The crisis had been managed. That evening, Krathvor called an assembly. Every Vraxian in the settlement gathered in the main dome. The cubs stood in front, still wearing their bags. Many of those bags were worn and dirty from hard use. But they had served their purpose. Our cubs saved us, Krathvor announced. His voice boomed across the dome. They prepared when we thought preparation was weakness. They carried solutions when we thought carrying anything was shameful. They proved that being ready is its own kind of strength. He looked directly at Shtek, Vernai, and Kles's Ra. The soft skins taught you well, but you learned well too. You took human wisdom and made it Vraxian, made it your own, made it useful. The adult Vraxians began to click and hiss their approval. The sound built and built until the entire dome echoed with it. The cubs' glowing lines pulsed so brightly they lit up the dim space. Later, Jiwan found Shtek sitting alone outside, looking at the stars. The young Vraxian was reorganizing his bag, replacing items that had been used during the crisis. "You did something incredible," Jiwan said, sitting next to him. "Cubs only did what human Jiwan taught," Shtek replied. "Carried what might be needed, was ready, helped when help was needed." "No," Jiwan said firmly. "I taught you to carry things. You decided what to carry. You made the map. You found the spring. You convinced the adults to listen. That was all you." Shtek was quiet for a moment. Then, he said something that Jiwan would remember forever. Human Jiwan gave Cubs new eyes. Now, Cubs see problems before they happen, see solutions before they are needed. This is not human gift. This is Vraxian future. 3 months after Park Jiwan first arrived on Vraxia Prime, the initial diplomatic mission was coming to an end. The human team had accomplished more than anyone expected. They had established friendly relations with the Vraxians. They had learned about each other's cultures. They had survived a crisis together. But the real change was in the Cubs. What had started as simple curiosity about a backpack had transformed into something much bigger. The young Vraxians no longer just carried bags. They had changed how they thought about the world. The carrying bags had evolved significantly. The crude first attempts were long gone. Now, Cubs made sophisticated designs with multiple compartments, adjustable straps, and weather-resistant materials. Some bags were works of art, decorated with colored scales and polished stones. More importantly, the adult Vraxians had noticed the change in their offspring. The Cubs who carried bags were better at solving problems. They thought ahead more. They considered multiple possibilities before acting. They helped each other more often, because they could share supplies. Krathvor had formally requested something unprecedented. He asked the Galactic Council if young Vraxians could attend human survival training programs. He wanted his people's Cubs to learn more about preparation, planning, and adaptation. The request shocked everyone. The Vraxians were known as fierce warriors who valued only strength. Now, they were asking to learn from humans, one of the smallest and weakest species in the galaxy. But humans had something the Vraxians wanted: the ability to survive anywhere through clever preparation. Other species in the council heard about this. They were fascinated. The fierce Vraxians, learning from humans? They wanted similar exchanges with their own young. Within weeks, 3 other species requested cultural exchange programs focused on human preparation philosophy. On the final day before departure, Jiwan stood in the main dome with his packed backpack. The transport ship would arrive in 2 hours. He had said goodbye to Krathvor and the other adults that morning. Now he waited to say goodbye to the Cubs. He didn't have to wait long. The Cubs came from every direction. Not just the original 3, who had first noticed his backpack, but every young Vraxian in the settlement. There were almost 50 of them, all wearing their bags. They formed a circle around Jiwan. Their glowing lines pulsed in synchronized patterns, which Jiwan had learned was a sign of emotional unity. They were feeling the same thing together: sadness at his leaving, but also gratitude. Shtek stepped forward as the spokesperson. His bag was the most elaborate in the group now, with many pockets and compartments. Each section was perfectly organized. He had become an expert at preparation. Human Jiwan gave Vraxians more than carrying shells, Shtek said. His translator converted the clicks and hisses into clear words. Gave new way to see strength. Taught that strength is not only claws and teeth. Strength is also being ready. Planning ahead. Carrying what future needs. The other Cubs all clicked their agreement. The sound filled the dome. Shtek opened his main bag pocket and carefully pulled out a smooth stone. It was volcanic glass, polished until it was almost like a mirror. The black surface had natural blue swirls running through it. It was beautiful. Human Jiwan carries rocks from many worlds. Memories of places visited. Shtek gives human Jiwan piece of Vraxia Prime. So human remembers that even apex predators can learn. can change, can grow. Jiwan took the stone with trembling hands. The weight felt significant, meaningful. He looked at the young Vraxian. This child of a warrior species, who had learned that preparation was just as important as strength. "I will treasure this forever," Jiwan said, his voice thick with emotion. Then, one by one, every other cub approached. Each gave Jiwan a stone from their bag. Not just any stones, but carefully selected ones. Each cub explained what their stone meant. Vernai gave him metamorphic rock. This rock changed under pressure. Like Vraxians change under new ideas, Klesisra gave him a stone with a fossil in it. This shows ancient life. Humans helped Vraxians become better future. Lesses. Vraxians. Lesses. Lesses. Tessik gave him a perfectly round stone, worn smooth by water. This took long time to become smooth. Learning takes time too. It went on and on. By the end, Jiwan had 50 stones. Each one unique, each one meaningful. His backpack was heavy with memories, but he didn't mind. This was a good weight to carry. Then something unexpected happened. Krathvor entered the dome. The massive warrior leader approached Jiwan. All the cubs went silent. Around Krathvor's neck hung a small pouch. It was the first time Jiwan had seen an adult Vraxian wearing any kind of bag. The pouch was simple, made from tough hide and tied with cord, but its existence was revolutionary. Krathvor never thought he would carry things, the leader said. His glowing lines pulsed with an emotion Jiwan couldn't quite identify. Vraxian warriors need nothing but themselves. This is what Krathvor always believed. He opened the small pouch. Inside was a crystal, the kind used for long-range communication. This links to human embassy. So Vraxians can call soft skins when we need wisdom, when we need friends. His mandibles clicked in what was definitely a smile. First time Krathvor carries something, feels strange, but also feels like strength. Jiwan felt tears in his eyes. He wasn't ashamed. This moment deserved emotion. "You honor me, Krathvor. You honor all humans. You earned honor," Krathvor replied simply. When the transport ship arrived, the entire settlement came to see the humans off. Jiwan, Daehyun, Heejin, and Minho walked up the ramp together. All four wore their backpacks. All four carried more than they had arrived with. Not just stones, but also the weight of what they had accomplished. As the ship lifted off, Jiwan pressed against the viewport window. Below, the settlement grew smaller, but he could still see the gathering area. Dozens of young Vraxians stood there, waving. Their bags were visible even from this height. Small spots of color and purpose against the dark volcanic landscape. Heijin sat beside him. She was quiet for a long moment, just watching the planet shrink below them. Finally, she spoke. "Do you understand what you've done? You've changed an entire species' evolutionary path. The Vraxians who grow up with those bags will be completely different from their parents. More adaptable, more creative, more ready for anything. They'll still be predators," Daehyun added from across the cabin. He was already making notes on his tablet about everything he had observed. They'll still be fierce warriors, but now they'll be warriors who plan ahead, who prepare, who think about tomorrow as much as today. Minho laughed. Humans' greatest contribution to the galaxy. Teaching space dinosaurs to carry snacks and first aid kits. Venin. F1. Veninon. F1. Veninon. F1. But Jiwan looked down at the volcanic glass stone in his hand. Shtek's gift. The weight felt right in his palm. He thought about the young Vraxian who had saved another cub's life, not with claws, but with a rope he had prepared just in case. He thought about Vernai's quick thinking, about Klesisra's creativity, about all the cubs who had learned that being ready was its own form of power. "No," Jiwan said quietly. "We didn't just teach them to carry things. We taught them that strength comes in many forms, that preparation is power, that thinking ahead is just as important as being strong right now. He thought of the cubs working together during the crisis, using their supplies, sharing their resources, solving problems through cooperation and preparation rather than just brute force. We taught them to carry their future with them, Jiwan continued, to always be ready for what comes next. And that's the most human thing there is. Not our weapons, not our technology, but our absolute refusal to face tomorrow unprepared. He closed his fingers around the stone. A piece of Vraxia Prime. A memory of changed lives. Of cubs who saw a backpack and asked, why? Of a warrior species that learned new ways to be strong. 6 months later, Jiwan watched a news broadcast from his apartment on Earth. The Galactic Council was showing footage of a Vraxian youth battalion deploying on a peacekeeping mission to a troubled border world. The young Vraxians were impressive. They moved with the natural grace and power of their species. Their scales gleamed. Their eyes tracked everything. They were clearly apex predators. But every single one wore a pack, advanced military backpacks, designed specifically for Vraxian physiology. Inside those packs were supplies, tools, medical equipment, communication devices, emergency rations, and yes, carefully selected stones from home. The footage showed one young warrior opening his pack to help injured civilians. Another used tools from her pack to repair damaged infrastructure. A third distributed food supplies to refugees. The reporter's voice narrated the scene. The Vraxian Youth Corps has proven to be the most effective peacekeeping force in recent Galactic Council history. Experts say their combination of traditional warrior skills with new preparation-focused training makes them uniquely capable of handling complex situations. The camera focused on one young Vraxian warrior. His pack was covered in small decorations, polished stones, woven patterns, personal touches that made it uniquely his. Jiwan leaned forward. He recognized those patterns. That style. Could it be? The warrior turned toward the camera. His scales had darkened with age, and he was much larger now. But Jiwan would recognize those eyes anywhere. Shh, Tech. The young cub who had first asked, "Why do you carry a shell that comes off?" was now a warrior. But not just any warrior. One who understood that true strength came from being ready, from carrying what you needed, from preparing for tomorrow while living today. Jiwan smiled. He walked to his desk and picked up a smooth piece of volcanic glass with blue swirls. He carried it in his backpack every day, just like Shtek had intended, a memory of a world where apex predators learned to carry bags, where cubs saw a human wear a backpack and decided they wanted to carry their own piece of the universe with them too, where preparation became power, where being ready became a way of life, where one simple lesson, carry what you might need, changed everything. Jiwan set the stone carefully in his current backpack. Tomorrow he would go to work. He would continue his diplomatic missions. He would meet new species and learn new things, and he would be prepared. Just like he taught the cubs of Vraxia Prime. Just like those cubs had taught the galaxy. The backpack trend spread to 17 species over the next 5 years. Each one adapted it to their own needs and culture. But all of them understood the basic truth. Being prepared for tomorrow made you stronger today. And it all started because a human diplomat wore a simple navy blue backpack to first contact, and some curious alien cubs asked, "Why?"